Could you imagine putting 70 grand in the bank and then the bank just saying, hey, we lost your money?
Hi, my name is Benjamin Schwartz. I had $43,000
You just gave me
that
the
I put
bits?
into my
Let's
savings
go!
account. I consider myself
Then I'll
one of the
shake
lucky
my
ones in the
tits.
situation. I was off.
Yaps. It's in the name. If you want to go to the bank, like this is really for the Americans in here, if you want to go to the bank, they might not let you withdraw their cash.
We're talking about a bank that
The problem with you is
withdraw your money.
inconsistency.
A bank where almost 100. Today we're talking.
You remember what I said about success, right? You want the secret to success, it's right here. It is discipline times consistency times intensity divided by your insecurities. So even though you may be inconsistent in the gym, this is a part of the formula that you know you can work on, right? Like discipline. Are you doing the things you need to do even when you don't want to do them? Consistency. How many days can you string that together? And then even if you're doing it, are you like haphazardly doing it? Are you just going through the motions, just checking off the boxes? If so, it's good if you're consistent with it. But to add a little bit of intensity is just going to exponentially increase the amount of success that you have. And we can't allow these insecurities to continue to grow. We have to keep them in check. We're all going to have some level of insecurity, some level of self-doubt. It doesn't have to be physical. It could be mental. I could speak openly and honest with you guys. Most of my insecurities, even though they probably stem from some type of physical thing, it's just mental. It's just mental.
About a bank that won't let you withdraw your money. A bank where almost.
What about knowledge on what you're doing? Yeah, but I feel like that knowledge comes with the discipline and consistency in that thing. But going out and finding knowledge and getting educated on whatever it is that you're trying to pursue, I would hope comes with that intensity, consistency, and discipline, right?
Almost $100 million.
But you're not wrong. I probably should need to add knowledge somewhere in there.
Because I've traced some of the missing funds, and I think some people are hiding the truth.
But hold on, we can't always say that knowledge is going to be a thing to success because we got idiots online who are on YouTube who could just say idiotic things and let me look at like Kai Cenat or even Aiden Ross. They're not the most knowledgeable people, right, in terms of like sophisticated things, but they are uberly successful because of the discipline, turning on the stream when they don't want to, the consistency, doing it for 365 days a year, and the intensity. I mean, do we need to look at Kai or Speed stream to see the level of intensity they bring with each and every stream? And if you don't want to look at them, look at other content creators like Repulse and the Warzone side of things. Or Beast Boy Gaming. What's this guy's name over here? The Indian gamer. Like, hold on. Beast Boy Shub. That's what I thought. BBS. This guy is great. Has 6.82 million subscribers. I promise you, if you look at my formula and look at him, it makes a lot of sense.
Even worse, our regulators and safeguards may have failed us. Let me show you what I mean.
Today we're talking to a bunch of people who found their money frozen in their bank last year.
Wow.
6 months later, they started getting paid out, but some of the money is missing.
Welcome to the Discord Diner. All right, let's start with the basics. What is your name and how much money did you have on
What's up, Jay?
your savings app?
What's up, brother?
Well, my name is Colin. My savings was
Is today your birthday, brother?
$53,105.95.
How much are you getting back?
Not a single penny.
Okay.
Hey, my name's Dave. I lost more than $70,000. The balance I received back from Evolve was $0.
Could you imagine putting 70 grand in the bank and then the bank just saying, hey, we lost your money?
Hi, my name is Benjamin Schwartz. I had $43,000
You just gave me
that
the
I put
bits?
into my
Let's
savings
go!
account. I consider myself
Then I'll
one of the
shake
lucky
my
ones in the
tits.
situation. I was offered $36,000 back. So I lost a total of $7,000 in the situation.
Wow.
Hi, my name is Jamal. I
Hi, Jamal.
have received a little over 6,000 back. I'm still owed 11,000. My wife.
This could create a revolution in India. Yeah, and I think the more that this gets known in America, it's going to cause at least a ripple to say the least.
has received $100 back of her $55,000.
$55,000 in the bank and they give you $100? Can you not sue them for this?
Now, this was obviously surprising. People who had put their money in a savings account were told they don't actually have that amount. Instead, the bank told them, we're going to give you whatever we think you have. In some cases, it was pennies on the dollar, seemingly at random. And to explain this vicious game of financial Russian roulette, we're going to have to map out what's really going on here. All of the people you've been hearing from save their money in fintech companies like Yada, Juno, and others. Slick financial apps that are not banks, but took deposits while advertising FDIC insurance. They did this using a middleman called Synapse to connect them with a real bank called Evolve Bank and Trust, who was FDIC insured in the event of a bank failure. So FDIC insurance, which is an American program where banks are insured with up to $250,000 against bankruptcy failure.
Yeah, but if that's why like a lot of wealthy people, as soon as they get $250,000 in one bank account, they open up another one and start putting money in that account, because the moment you go over that, you're no longer like safe. Your money is no longer safe.
Doesn't apply here because a bank didn't fail. A middleman did. Theoretically, everyone's money should still be safely held at Evolve. But this is where our mystery begins, because as the bankruptcy carried on, Evolve said they didn't have all the customers' money. There was a giant gap between what Synapse said they had versus what Evolve did. According to the Wall Street Journal, up to $96 million might be missing. Evolve Bank claims they're not the problem. They literally don't have customers' money because they were told to send it to other banks like AMG and Lineage. Why? The story goes that in late 2023, Synapse wanted to diversify banks instead of relying on just one. So they set up relationships with other banks like AMG and Lineage to hold customers' money and diversify. Makes sense. Now, most customers weren't aware of this change because it was only noted in an opt-out email basis sent to customers, meaning if you didn't see it when it came through, your money may have been moved without you ever knowing or approving it. Normally, this wouldn't matter, and some fintechs like Yada even pitched it as a way to get increased FDIC insurance coverage, which
like if that's the case and there's emails and there's a text thread of that, isn't that not suable? Because it's like, no, there's not more coverage, it's less coverage.
Hindsight is ironic, but the effect is that everyone's money
ironic
was
is a word for it.
shuffled around like a game of three-card Monte. Of course, Synapse, in theory, should have records of where all that money went.
In theory.
Synapse is now in bankruptcy, and not everyone agrees with their numbers. Specifically, Evolve Bank and Trust, who says they don't have as much of the customer funds as Synapse says they do. To prove it, Evolve hired Encura Consulting to do their own reconciliation of the bank's balance sheet, and their numbers versus Synapse's numbers is what has created the gap. These results were given to customers on November 4th. The day before the presidential election. Always a pretty good day to hide bad news. That is, you don't have as much savings as you thought you had. Customers are understandably confused and angry. Whoever's fault this is, it's not theirs. So that's what we're trying to uncover. Where is this nearly $100 million of missing funds? Somebody has it, but everyone's saying it's not them. The other banks, AMG and Lineage, by the way, do not deny they had some of the money from Evolve, but they tend to agree with Synapse's version of the ledger and have already paid out based on that. Meanwhile, Evolve is also saying they've paid out their fair share. So we're stuck in this horrible situation where people are using different ledgers to say, oh, we fully paid out everyone. And some people are getting...
I know that this is like crypto right now has a stain on it, but I genuinely feel like with having a digital ledger and just the way that crypto just tokenizes everything, and there's just receipts for every transaction, and there's a you know, like the blockchain ultimately keeps track of all of this. I think this is where the blockchain comes in and helps, and it eliminates a lot of this human fugaziness.
Pennies on the dollar, seemingly at random.
My name is Max, and I have a little bit over $21,000 in a Yota account.
How much is the bank going to give you back?
Evolve is going to give me $17 back.
$17? Bro, this is worse than Ubisoft stock.
How does that feel? I mean, what is that like?
A slap in the face. It's an insult. Honestly, I would have rather them not giving me anything and say that they cannot proceed with the complete reconciliation that they initially intended to do, than to give me scraps and then basically watch.
Just put your money in gold, that way it doesn't depreciate. Gold price today, max. You may be right. You may be right from 2012 to what it is now. I mean, sure, but I say don't put it in gold. I say put it in Bitcoin. But shit, what do I know?
Washing their hands with it.
My name is Pblar, and I put $20,000 into my Yada savings account. After the reconciliation, Evolve has told me that they're going to offer me $700 out of that $20,000.
Insulting. It's insulting.
So my name's Corey, and I had about $34,000, a little over $34,000 left in my account at the time of everything being frozen.
We can diversify.
Well, they are giving me back $0 out of the $34,000 that I am supposed to have.
I don't have this amount of money invested into Bitcoin, crypto. I mean, I feel like Omni, just speaking to you directly, like half my money is in stocks and half of it's in crypto, right? So I don't want to put all of my eggs in one basket, but I don't have $34,000 invested, even if you combine them. I can't imagine putting $34,000 into an account and then saying, yo, I need to withdraw my money, and them saying you have $0. Where the did my money go?
Now, with so much on the line, all of these banks have been desperately trying to put out their side of the story, with specifically Evolve's being the most different. And they've been sharing screenshots of hundreds of millions of dollars moving from their bank to these other banks, saying that they just don't have the money. Whereas Synapse's CEO, on the other hand, has been very vocal as well. Even one of the fintechs, Yada, has sued Evolve. But at the end of the day, it's become a bit of a he said, she said, where everyone has their own numbers that they're using to say we're right, but it's hard to rely on anyone's word. So I wondered if we could trace the problem ourselves a little differently, not relying on any one source, but instead going to everyone, just asking questions, and maybe finding some different threads to pull on.
Link in chat. What do you mean? What do you mean,
Cross? Where
Cross?
things got interesting. Little by little, I was able to get a bunch of internal emails.
No links in chat,
documents
please.
between these companies. Even get detailed banking records. All of this showed big problems.
Fortune
but they had
500's
been
good,
brewing
but
for much
even on days
longer
like
than I
today,
thought.
you could lose
Way
20%.
before everything blew up in May of 2024, rewind the clocks back to when everyone's money was in one place at Evolve. And let's look at some internal documents that were sent to Synapse. It's September 25th, 2023. That's the day Evolve sent notice that Synapse had breached the Master Services Agreement by failing to fully fund the FBO account. By the way, FBO just means for benefit of. Plain English, it means it's the customer's account. The money people were putting into these fintechs wasn't fully funded by what was in the actual bank account per their agreement. That's what Evolve says. Evolve then demands $50 million in a reserve account to be filled within 2 days of the letter. They also notify Synapse that they're going to take $16 million from what is called the Synapse's fee account to hold it for end users, aka customers. Now understand, the fees, that just means the interest Synapse would have been paid on the cash they hold with Evolve. Synapse, of course, is a middleman, so a lot of that money they're going to make from interest is just passed on to fintechs like Yada, who then in turn passes it on to customers. So
this is insane to me. It's like there's a middleman, so every time the money is being moved, there's fees, and these fees are how these companies are making their money, and it's just gross.
If Synapse,
and especially when they're making all of this money while losing yours, it's just, it's, you want to talk about a slap to the face, it's a slap to the dick.
Synapse is short $16 million. That means Yada, and now a lot of people are short $16 million. Everyone's getting squeezed, but that's just the start of the problem. So you remember, Synapse owes $50 million in the next 2 days. But when it comes due, Synapse gets a termination letter from Evolve, and then they send their own email. Now, before we open this, understand, customers had no idea that their money might not be fully funded at the bank and were never notified of these problems. Everything you're about to hear is being whispered in emails right now. And what is being said, like deliberate misstatements, factual realities, potential harm, these are white-collar words for hey, we think this is going to end a disaster and we think you did it. But of course, nobody knows that yet except for Synapse and Evolve. Synapse even seems to anticipate this would eventually go public because they write in their letter, we do not expect this response will prompt significant change, but we hope it will correct the record and provide factual transparency to those who may read your letters. Like us, for example. They're anticipating outside parties we're going to come in and read all of these. Now, in here we find Synapse blaming the deficiency in the customer account on Evolve. They accuse Evolve of misappropriation of funds, a situation caused by Evolve itself.
Somebody's
Synapse claims
misappropriating.
that 12 days prior,
you gotta
they
go.
notified
Later, Omni.
Evolve that
Have a good
Evolve
rest of your
was
day.
charging fees from customers' accounts that they shouldn't have. Basically, they were payment processor fees. The payment processor was called TabaPay, and this should not have been on the customer to pay it. According to Synapse, about
Cross,
$12
I'll be on
million
COD
in fees
after this
were
video.
charged to their customers. And Synapse says this $50 million demand you guys gave us, that's retaliation for us telling you that you have been misappropriating these funds. Synapse then also highlights a $13 million account analysis charge that was also improperly taken from customers' money. So both sides are basically demanding tens of millions from each other. And we'll get to some concrete evidence in a moment, but I want to flag that for right now,
Now we know where the money's at. Both these sides are just bitching at each other because they're just trying to take the most amount of money they can in a dip.
Evolve, Synapse, the chilling realization is that whoever's right, this collapse began over a year ago. And more importantly, before the migration of funds out of Evolve Bank. Banking experts who have been watching this unfold, by the way, have commented on this. Jason Mikula is our fintech and banking resident expert. He agreed to help me get to the bottom of this. And here's what he told me.
In my mind, one of the biggest worst decisions was allowing this brokerage migration to take place, which is on both Synapse and Evolve, right?
Yeah.
Allowing that migration to take place when it would seem that everyone knew the records were not accurate and reliable and that there was a shortfall. Because that has really compounded the difficulty of trying to unwind this situation and understand what happened.
Exactly. Why would you shuffle everyone's money around to different banks if you hadn't sorted out where everyone's money was in the first place? This is the first question I brought to Evolve, the question of the shortfall. Evolve's position appears to be, oh, there's no shortfall of funds at Evolve, but that can't be true based on their September 2023 correspondence. They're the ones who said you didn't fully fund the account. There had to be a shortfall. Now, how big exactly it was is a little trickier to figure out. Not that I haven't tried. Remember, I do have a bunch of internal banking records from thousands of customers, which, by the way, I can't believe they didn't make me sign an NDA for or redact in any way, which I thought was incredibly irresponsible.
Hold on, say that one more time.
Banking records from thousands of customers, which, by the way, I can't believe they didn't make me sign an NDA for or redact in any way, which I thought was incredibly irresponsible. Either way, essentially, I looked through everybody's, bank records. It was monthly statements for Synapse's customers going back literally years out of.
And people are mad that Doge has this access. Random YouTubers have this access.
Evolve. And I used a couple of scripts to turn these PDFs into a database and queried it for certain fees. Now, I was able to reproduce some of Synapse's claims. It does appear true that Evolve seems to be charging a bunch of fees to customers' accounts that they really shouldn't have. And it does go back years.
Account analyst
Let me
charge.
repeat that because it's really important. Customers were being charged improper fees directly from their accounts that should not have been there. And to my understanding, those fees have never been repaid. Why didn't Synapse address this sooner? I don't know. It seems like they brought it up only in 2023 when this has been happening for like several years. I can't figure that out. But Evolve's position seems to be much harder to explain. They say that some of these fees were owed by Synapse as part of their master
They're just trying to get their bag and get
but I
out
got
of
a
there.
copy of that agreement, and it seems like those fees were put in place later. I don't. It's very confusing. But the point is, did the customers ever get their money back?
Nope.
I asked Evolve about this in an email and was sent Evolve's lawsuit with Yada. In it, they kind of appeared to admit in the lawsuit that there were improper fees, but maybe it was an administrative mistake. And specifically,
huge
that
mistake.
might be made up for by this reserve account, which they funded mostly using Synapse's money. which I think is funny. Quote, Evolve transferring over $35 million from the reserve to customer accounts. Later, they state they had up to $43 million in a reserve account by the end of 2023. It's worth emphasizing that while Evolve says there was never a shortfall, and even if there was, they had it covered, the reason Synapse went bankrupt is kind of because of this shortfall. According to the Wall Street Journal, Synapse tried to sell itself and neared a deal with TabaPay. But TabaPay walked away over concern about the potential size of the shortfall, people familiar with the matter said. Now, yes, to those of you who have paid attention, TabaPay fees is part of the reason for all this disaster, and they also almost bought Synapse. Confusing, small world. The point is, how can Evolve say there's no shortfall, but everyone else seems to think that there is? Whether or not you believe this comes from improper fees that they took from customer accounts, I don't really care. The point is the chain of events here. Synapse notifies Evolve of missing funds. Evolve then says, okay, funds are deficient. Synapse, you owe $50 million to cover any possible liabilities. We're blaming it on you. And by the way, we're going to keep $16 million or so this month. Obviously, to make sure your customers get the money they're owed. Of course, this leaves Synapse and the fintechs that rely on it strapped for cash. Synapse reacts by moving a lot of their money outside of Evolve on an opt-out basis to other banks. But by this point, both parties, Evolve and Synapse, both know that there's a shortfall in the customer accounts. Both disagree about how big it is, who's responsible for filling the gap, but both of them still move the money, which makes no sense because suddenly the discovery of these mistakes is swept under the rug and all the money shuffled around. So was the money actually missing? Was it covered in the reserve account? We don't actually have a good way of knowing.
I think the money was going back and forth, and every time it was going back and forth, there was fees. And so shrinking the size of the pool of the money going back and forth super slowly. And every time that money was being drained and shrinked, it was just going into the pocket of probably the execs of both of these companies.
But it gets even worse because one of the big events that actually led to this collapse was the Mercury migration. Mercury is yet another fintech company that confusingly markets itself as a sort of bank like Yada or Juno. On Google, it's described as Mercury Bank, and then directly underneath that, Mercury is a financial technology company, not a bank. Clear as mud. Anyways, Mercury Bank, which is not a bank, worked with Synapse up until 2023, and they were by far the biggest client with over $3 billion in assets. But one day, they decide they don't really need Synapse. They want to work directly with Evolve. Now, that would be fine, but when you have a gap in customer funds, or might have a gap, it starts to get a little questionable because Mercury got paid out. They migrated. They got all $3 billion. Once again, Jason Mikula explains why this might be a problem.
But just because, a payday. Somebody was using Yada and happened to have their Yada balance assigned to Evolve versus Mercury or Nomad or Yield Street or whatever, who, maybe wound down their program earlier, there is no justifiable reason why these Yada and Juno users should be the one, eating the losses just because they were sort of the last man standing, so to speak.
Absolutely. And I think the point is, once you realize there's a shortfall, people running for the door should start to be very heavily scrutinized because exactly the problem you said, which is that it just becomes sort of there's this moment at FTX where everyone realizes oh, they may not have all the money. Everyone runs for the door. Some people are just faster than others, right? And that seems to be a huge problem here where, and I don't want anyone, at the end of the day, no end user should have to bear the brunt of this. But if you're actually thinking about what it would look like for billions of dollars to take a loss on this, maybe you're looking at maybe 95 cents on the dollar, maybe 90 cents on the dollar per customer. Whereas now we're having a lot of people get made completely whole and some people basically getting zero or maybe
$17.
10 cents on the dollar. This is so unfair. And this even extends to Yada itself and customers themselves. They're getting these wildly different statements where some people go, I got all my money back. Why? I don't know. It's literally the funny thing is, Yada began as a lottery. It is a lottery. Congratulations, you got what you paid for because we are literally rolling the dice with whether your money is there or not, and it has nothing to do with you or your decisions, the quality of your decisions. This is literally, we put our money in the same exact place, and for reasons that are completely unrelated to us, you get no money, I get all my money back. That makes no sense.
I hope by now you're grasping how gross this whole situation is. Mercury Bank
I feel like I gotta go
got
take a
100%
shower.
of their $3 billion or whatever back, while the much smaller fintech companies are eating up to a $96 million loss. We're not exactly sure how big the shortfall is, for absolutely no reason really, other than Mercury left Synapse before it blew up. I should note, Mercury would unequivocally deny that they moved for any improper reasons or that they were at all part of the cause of this collapse.
Of course, they're never gonna say like, "Oh yeah, we saw the collapse coming, so we took the bag and ran." They can't say that, so of course they're gonna be like, "No, of course, we just left because the relationship ran its course."
But I do think we should be skeptical of the timing of all this, because in behind-the-scenes emails from Synapse to Evolve, we find out that Mercury decided to leave Synapse the same day that Evolve said there was a deficiency in the FBO account. So did Mercury find out that there were problems at Synapse before anyone else and run for the door? Or was this a very coincidental timing and they had planned it all along? I asked Mercury and they told me, quote, Mercury made the decision not to renew its contract with Synapse long before informing Synapse of the decision to terminate the relationship.
The relationship ran its course. We definitely didn't foresee this burning, raging fire that was about to happen.
Also telling me, quote, having direct relationships and integrations with our partner banks was in the best interest of Mercury and our customers, clearly denying any coincidental timing. A month later, though, they also sent me another message saying Mercury has decided to end its relationship with Evolve Bank and Trust. Make of that what you will. I should also note, one of Evolve's executives left the company around the collapse, citing integrity as the reason for him leaving. Evolve Bank and Trust had no comment on this, understandably. Multiple other executives have also left the company. Now, I have extensively questioned Evolve for months about all of this, and I finally found one.
Why are all of these people leaving? Is it just because it's scummy place, or is it they just feel like they're not going to have a job and it's going to look better if they leave now instead of staying with this burning, sinking ship?
Lead worth pursuing. Remember when Evolve noticed the shortfall? It withheld funds.
Like, if you know you're like, we're talking like a Call of Duty team, right? And you know you're like Pred, you're 0-18, you guys can't win a game. Do you wait like he did and later to find out that you could have switched roles and maybe helped out, right, and done things with integrity? Or you say no, leave, and then that way you can go get the bag somewhere else and without ruining your reputation or tarnishing your reputation?
Funds from Synapse.
I hope that makes sense. I think I was a little crossed on that, but I think you guys are picking up what I'm putting down.
It put them in something called a reserve account. Well, throughout my conversations with Evolve, they referenced this account as if it still had money to pay people, saying that they had $43 million in reserve to pay out customers at the end of 2023. And along the way, I asked them, well, did you pay it out? You know, given that nearly $100 million may be missing, it would go a long way to fill that gap. And they told me, quote, we have provided updates regarding the reserve accounts in several of the bankruptcy hearing filings. Those hearings and filings are public. Evolve continues to hold reserve accounts on behalf of end users to be used as necessary, which is a very unhelpful way of answering a yes or no question. Did you hand out the money? Evolve instead points me to mountains of documents in a bankruptcy hearing. But funny enough, the person in charge of
that doesn't inspire much confidence in me. What about you guys?
That bankruptcy seems confused also about Evolve's position. This is according to the bankruptcy trustee herself. Quote, Evolve has declined to report the potential use of reserve funds to pay end users. So that's an alarming statement coming from the person whose job it is to know where the money is in a bankruptcy. On Evolve's website, they say they hold $35 million in reserve funds it will distribute if the reconciliation indicates such distributions are appropriate. But whose reconciliation? That's the whole problem, isn't it? Is it Synapse's or the one Evolve hired out that says they don't owe any extra money, right? They've been using that to disagree with everybody. So what are we talking about here? According to them, they've paid out the money. There is no shortfall, meaning the $35 million is not owed to customers and instead goes where? Well, I asked them exactly that, and they responded, the funds will be handled in accordance with the relevant terms of the parties' master bank services agreement, which again is not helpful. And it concerns me that maybe Evolve is trying to find a way to hold on to this money for themselves, saying that they've paid out everybody and that this is just millions of dollars extra. If they didn't think they could do that as an option, they can and should just say so directly and publicly. They did not. I was also confused about exactly how much money they had. In emails to me, they mentioned $43 million at the end of 2023. According to their website, they have $35 million right now. What happened to the $8 million difference? I asked them about this, and once again, they refused to answer, citing, quote, ongoing legal processes that prevented them from discussing it. Look,
those are all the fees that they were, once more, that's the pool that I'm talking about, and the money going back and forth and slowly shrinking. That $8 million missing is probably pulled out from fees and put into the pockets of the employees who work at the companies.
Look, I'll tell you where the money is as soon as all the lawsuits about missing money come to a close. To be clear, I think everyone in this story should be scrutinized, but Evolve is a regulated bank, and regulated banks, most of all, and people with money in their reserve accounts, even more so, should be scrutinized the most, especially since Evolve is where the shortfall started in the first place.
Yep.
Remember, months before anyone knew about the missing funds,
They're the ones
them and
charging
Synapse were
the-
disagreeing
the-
about it in
the
internal emails. So while, yes,
inaccurate
I
and
am in favor of a
inappropriate
full
fees.
reconciliation with all the data across all the banks, until we get that, we need to look at who still has money in this ecosystem. And
I know I've said this a lot, but I genuinely feel that this is the reason why cryptocurrency is going to be the future, because you're going to put things in the blockchain every time the money is moved. Every time it goes from one account to another and fees are pulled out, it's going to be put on the blockchain and everybody can see it. Everybody can see it. Now, if you guys want to see the rest of the video, I'll go ahead and link it. But, man, what just a crazy situation. So it's like, can you even trust the banks anymore? Let me know